Hey, and welcome to this episode of Coffee and Cleavage. Um, I wanted to take a moment just to thank everybody for all of the support that I've gotten on this podcast journey of mine. I'm learning and I'm growing, and I'm sure that it'll get better. But I really appreciate everybody that takes the time to stop and listen and engage with me. It's greatly appreciated. I'm not feeling the best today, so bear with me. I had to see it through though. This podcast today is on vetting. I felt like after the one last week that vetting would be a really good place to pick up from. Let's talk about vetting in the context of BDSM. It's a process of evaluating potential partners to ensure compatibility, safety, and consent in a BDSM dynamics. Now, we vet things on a regular basis. When we go and we read reviews before we go on vacation, or rent from an apartment complex, or do our research on a potential employer. We are vetting them. When we go in and we ask the questions, we've done the research, we want to know what their ethics look like, what their guidelines and principles and inclusion looks like, at the job. And we're in there and we're asking them questions as they're asking us questions. That is vetting on both sides. When we are talking about vetting, we want to make sure that we understand that vetting has to be done by both sides. It's not just a, a left side of the slash that, needs to vet, or the right side of the slash that needs to vet. Everyone needs to be participating in the vetting process to make sure that they're finding the best possible candidates for whatever they're looking for. I decided to start this podcast off by telling one of my own stories from when I first started. And it wasn't actually vetting for a dynamic. It was vetting for just a friendship. And people have to understand that that's super important too. So let me tell the story. I was new on sets. Well, not new, but new enough. And I was engaging. I was new to Texas. And so I didn't know a lot of people. And a young lady reached out to me, and she was like, "Oh, it is so awesome to see another, Black female dominant. I would love for us to hang out. You're a mom. I'm a mom. This is great." And I was like, fuck yeah. Because Black femme moms unite, right? And so we met up and we went to a local place over here that has to do with gaming, which I absolutely loved. The conversation seemed to flow. There were a few red flags, but nothing that gave me the ick. And we talked, we communicated. We were there for like 2-3 hours. It was great. And then we continued communicating, and we ended up meeting up again. And when we met up at that spot again. And I was actually doing a vetting process for a potential partner, not like a submissive, but like a partner. And so I was like, "Oh yeah, you can just meet us here." And when I got there, it was almost like a possessive vibe, if that makes sense. Except for me, I can be pretty oblivious, especially if I'm not looking at someone in that particular manner. if you don't tell me you trying to talk to me, I'm not even gonna pay attention to that aspect of it. I'm just gonna assume everybody's being nice and everybody's being friendly, and that's how we're moving. Um, and there were a few, things here and there, but I didn't think anything of it, right? And then it started to get a little weird. I would get text messages like, "Oh, if you don't want to talk to me, just say that." Now, mind you, I don't know what this is about. I don't know where this is coming from. I don't know any of this, right? And when I asked her about it, she responds back the next day and she's like, "Oh, I was just drinking." I found out that the person that I was vetting, like for a potential partner, she was reaching out to him. "Hey, are you going to this concert? We can room together." Just a lot of weird stuff. Definitely not a girls situation. Um, and what ended up happening is about a month in, she sends me this long message talking about how she actually reached out to me because, she thought I was really pretty and she's not the best at approaching women. And um, I do not know why that thumbs up things happen. So I'm gonna have to look at this phone and figure out why. But anyway, um, and she was like, the reason I was trying to get, your kids and my kids together is because, I think that we'll be great as a family unit and we can grow and prosper together. And, when I reached out, I wanted us to have like a threesome with somebody else that I had no engagement with really on sets. And, him and we stopped, talking, but I thought that it would be great. And I understand if you don't want to talk to me, um, because, this makes you uncomfortable. But I just wanted to get all of this out here. Now I'm paraphrasing. I'm leaving certain, bits and pieces out. All information doesn't need to be disclosed. Um, but there were several things that I overlooked. There were several things that I didn't look into because I was so excited to find somebody that had been further along on the journey that I was starting to embark on. A lot of times, we as women, so I'm talking to us, we as women, we look at other women and we view them as safe, and that is inaccurate. There are just as many predatory women out there as there are predatory men. So you want to do your due diligence regardless of who you're talking to, what chromosome assignment they have, because either or non-binary, whatever they identify as, you want to make sure that you're vetting them. You want to make sure that you're protecting yourself in this process. You want to make sure that you're doing your due diligence, because to not do due diligence is to get yourself in a very uncomfortable and could be dangerous situation. um, you know, I don't think that enough people think about vetting and the importance of vetting. It's more than just watching somebody online. I've had people come to me and say, "Hey, I'd love for you to teach me this," or "I'd love for you to mentor me," or "What vetting have you done on me? Outside of what you see of me online, what do you know about me? Who have you talked to about me? Have you talked to previous partners or um, previous S types that I've dealt with? Have you talked to my mentor? Have you talked to my leather sibs? Have you seen me at conferences? What have you done to do your due diligence to make sure that I'm as safe as I appear to be online? Because online, we can be whatever we want to be. With the right Photoshop, I can be a dog with my face and inspirational. Like you can be whatever you want to be online. So we want to make sure that we are not taking online personas as truth and as fact. Because online, it's very difficult to really know who you are dealing with. So there are different, levels of vetting. If you are just looking for somebody that you want to scene with, it is going to be one level of vetting. Whereas if you are looking for an actual power exchange, so a DNS and MNS dynamic, you're going to want to make sure that you're doing your due diligence, you're asking the proper questions, you're looking at the different things. So I'm going to spend a little time going over some points I think is really beneficial when you are out here and you are um, vetting a potential, play partner or dynamic, a potential top or bottom. One of the things I think that's very important to talk about and vet is communication style. Okay. So in this life that we live, in these things that we do, there needs to be a certain level of openness and honesty. Transparency is super important in building the trust, in truly knowing that everybody's clear on what one desires. Okay. Um, they have to be willing to talk about desires, experiences, expectations. One of the things that I don't do is for me, with a potential submissive, a submissive that comes to me and says, "Oh, whatever you want," that doesn't fly for me because it's a power exchange. So I need to be able to provide you with what you need, just like you need to be able to provide me with what I need. And if you're not able to articulate that, if you're not sure what you need, what you want, what you desire, or you're uncomfortable with speaking on that, then you're not at a point in your journey that you're ready to submit to someone. You still need to work on that. So for me, that's a deal breaker. It's an automatic no. Um, the second one is the listening skills. Um, Everyone, when you say listening skills, they're automatically going to think, yeah, does the submissive, does the slave listen? I mean, does the dominant listen? But we have to listen too. How do we know that we're meeting the needs or not meeting the needs of the person that we are in a dynamic with if we are not listening to hear and not listening to respond? So it's very important to pay attention to that as you're delving in. I feel like I started with the questions, but we're going to pause this for just a second. This is how you know that I be all over the place. Um, Before you go and approach someone for vetting, I would really recommend taking a moment and sitting back and watching them in their environment. I remember when I met my mentor before he was my mentor. And I remember I walked into my first events and I was introducing myself and I walked up to him and I said, "It's nice to meet you. My name is," and he was like, "Oh, I know who you are." And I was just floored. But what people don't realize is that for the people that have been doing this for a while, they're watching and paying attention to all things. Before you even know that you're being watched, you're being watched. And that's the way it should be, because how do you know if I am being my authentic self with you if you haven't watched me be myself? Just period, just in general. So we want to make sure that we're taking the time and we're we're looking into all of that even before approaching. We need to be looking at the online engagement. We need to be paying attention to their interactions with others. Are they in the middle of shit all the time? Are they arguing with people all the time? Is that the type of energy that you want to be around? Because some people like that energy, and I'm not here to yuck anybody's yum. But for me, that's not what I'm on. I don't have time to be sitting up here arguing with people and fighting and all of that. My block game is way too strong. So I would recommend, before even approaching someone, that you're sitting back and you're gauging and you're reviewing and you're seeing what they're doing when they don't know that they're being watched. Okay. So we stopped at listening skills. So the third part is the BDSM interests and limits. You want to make sure that your interests align. You want to make sure that your kinks and your fetishes are something that aren't hard limits for someone else. For me, a hard limit, needle play. It's a no for me. That's a no. Another hard limit for me is sounding, not doing that. And fisting. That's a hard limit for me as well. So if that is something that is a very large portion of what someone needs within a dynamic, I wouldn't be the appropriate D type for them. Also, I don't do all forms of degradation. For a while, I thought I didn't do any degradation, but that's not true. I do. But there's just certain forms of degradation that I refuse to do. A lot of people don't like to talk about this, but mental health is a thing. With my trauma and my lived experiences, there's just certain things that I refuse to get involved with. And it's a limit for me. And I'm always very transparent about that. So that's a big thing. Experience level. Asking about experience levels are really important. When people come to me, I'm always like, y'all do know I'm new, right? Like, I don't have experience on top of experience on top of experience. So are you okay with this when you're coming to me and you're talking to me about that? I know for me, I don't necessarily have a problem with newness, but I need anybody that I'm dealing with on that level to be thirsty for knowledge, because I'm going to expect to see growth. I'm going to demand growth, because at the end of the day, whenever, if ever, our dynamic ever leaves, I want to know that when you leave me, you're leaving a better person. You're better. You have become better while with me, not stay stagnant, not became a lesser version of self. I want to make sure that I'm pouring into you and that I'm allowing you to grow and I'm helping you grow, not allowing you to grow, because I can't force you to do anything. But as I'm watering you, I want to make sure that you're willing to flourish and grow. So that's a must. So newness isn't necessarily a bad thing for me. I know for me, coming in, I'm always really intimidated. People that have so much experience. Well, I started off being intimidated by especially S types that have so much experience, because I'm new with this, right? But what I have found along my journey is some of my best teachers outside of my mentor have been my leather sets. And a lot of them are S types. They are dope S types. I'm going to slowly drag each and every one on on this podcast eventually, but we'll talk about that later. I learned so much from them. Why? Because they don't have a problem articulating what they need, what they require, what they want, what these dynamics look like for them. You know, what healthy dynamics look like for them. I'm able to see it in real practice, in real life. And that really helps me know what healthy looks like and how I can grow as a person and as a dominant. And so I love having people surrounding me that are more knowledgeable than me. And I would like to believe that I come with a little bit of extra too because I am new. And I want you guys to understand that as well. Being new doesn't mean that you don't bring something to the table. Because I know I drive my mentor up the wall. Because I'm like, well, why is this like that? Okay, well, have you thought about it like this? Well, let's try to do it this way. Oh, I know you guys see it in this way, or I know that you guys think that the internet is problematic, but this is how the new age communicates. So let's learn how to facilitate learning environments so they can learn and grow and this community can flourish and be better. So your newness just means that you're new. It doesn't mean that you don't bring something to the community and to the table when you come into these spaces. So I don't ever want you to feel like your newness is a problem. However, you also have to be coachable and teachable. And vetting is making sure that whoever is coaching and teaching you is the proper person to do so. Past play partners and relationships. This one can be a bit sticky. Because everyone isn't healed. Everyone doesn't leave a situation and value what they've gotten from it. Now, every situation isn't healthy, right? Every situation isn't the best situation. So when you are going and you're talking to past play partners and relationship and all of that, you want to make sure that, you're listening and you're noting. But if you also watch the person before you started the process of engaging with them, you can kind of tell um, if it's online with what you viewed. You want to take this down as notations, not necessarily as facts. Okay? Unless every past relationship is saying don't do it, don't pass, go, you know, don't collect $100. That's something different. But you want to make sure that you're using these interactions with past partners um, as a guideline. And we can't always take it as fact. And I hate to say that everybody isn't, honest when they've been jaded in any way, shape, or form. So you want to make sure that when you're vetting that way, that you're keeping that in mind. Okay. You want to make sure that you are touching bases on safety practices, touching on risk awareness, evaluate their understanding and implementation of safety measures, including safe words, aftercare, and negotiations of scenes. Ask them, have they ever been in a situation where a scene has gone wrong? If everything is perfect, to me, that's a red flag. Every seasoned person that I've been privileged to speak to have had situations that did not go as planned, and they had to sit down, reevaluate, and redo how they handle situations. Someone that can come to me and say, hey, so my first two partners, I botched up. I didn't do this, I didn't do that. I learned from that. Hopefully I've been able to help them pass this, and I've gone and I've accepted responsibility, and they don't really want to deal with me anymore, but I can totally understand that. But I definitely take accountability. That to me shows growth. No one is perfect. And I don't trust anybody that puts on that perfect facade. Nobody is perfect. And so we want to make sure that we're paying attention to that when they're telling us about themselves. Because remember, transparency, honesty, communication. A transparent person is going to say, I fucked up this one time, and then there was this other time that I I did this and I realized this wasn't the way of doing it. And I had to unlearn and unpack and start a healing process. All of those things are tall tale signs of growth. Nobody starts off perfect. And anybody that tells you that they are, they're lying. Another important thing is handling conflict resolutions, handling disagreements. That's super important. Nobody is going to agree on everything. How healthy is your communication? Are you able to handle constructive criticism? Are you able to handle constructive criticism as a detox? Are you able to sit back and look at yourself and say, hey, I could have handled this better? Or, you know what you're saying is valid. Excuse me. What you're saying is valid, and I grasp all of that. You know, all of that is super important. It's super important to be able to hold these conversations when conflict arises. I won't go too far into that because I can go on a whole soapbox about conflict resolutions. But yeah, that's a really important part to look at. Also, aftercare and emotional support. Do they have the spoons to support you emotionally in a DNS dynamic? A lot of people don't understand that topping is occasional, right? You top, you seen, it's fun, it's great at the moment, but a DNS MNS situation, that's a contractual agreement. You cannot just be a dominant or a submissive Monday, Wednesday, and sometimes on Saturday if you feel like it. That's not how it works. It is a way of living, it's a way of being. And a lot of people call themselves dominants or submissives and really don't understand that they're really just a top or bottom. And I want to say that there's nothing wrong with being a top and a bottom or a bottom. The biggest thing is you have to call a spade a spade. If you're coming in and you're saying that you want to be a submissive and you're talking to me and you're like, I want to be a submissive, then I'm expecting you to understand the difference between a bottom and a submissive. So when we're sitting down and we're making these agreements and we're coming up with these contracts, because there's contracts that come into play, I can't talk for everybody else, but it's contractual for me because I'm pouring into you at a certain level and I expect the same back. So, do you have the spoons for emotional support? What does aftercare look like for you? And are you able to provide them the care that they need after a scene? That's a conversation that definitely needs to be had. Personal values and lifestyles, compatibility of values, ensuring that your core values and those of your potential partner are compatible, especially regarding consent, autonomy, and respect. All of those are super important. And you have to be on the same page about that, or it leaves something to be desired. That the dynamic was over before it even started. So you want to make sure that you're touching bases on that. You want to look at lifestyle integration. You know, consider how BDSM fits into their life and whether it aligns with how you envision incorporating BDSM into your own life. Once again, this is me 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Somebody that just plays when they can would not be a good fit for me, and vice versa. So we have to make sure that we look at that. We talked about, you know, watching how they present themselves. So, you know, watch how they interact on social media versus in person. You know, people create persona. I remember when I would meet people and they'd be like, oh, you're funny in real life, or wow, you're really chill and laid back. I'm chill and laid back online. And my partner would tell me, well, people create personas, people create um, personalities. And so they're one way online, they're charismatic online, they're all of these things online. And then when you meet them in person, they're the complete opposite. And I feel like I've built the community that I've built on the website, on Fit, the way that I have, because I am so transparent. I'm having a bad day. I'm having a bad day. If my body dysmorphia is acting up and clowning and I haven't been able to post, I'll say that as well. Because at the end of the day, regardless of what brush someone else chooses to paint me with, I am a human being and I'm myself. And someone else's thought process on me has nothing to do with me. Because I'm authentically myself everywhere I go. And I feel like that's important. I think that looking at community engagement as well is really important, for me anyway, because of what I like to do and my teaching and um, the munch I run and all of these things. So watching community engagement, watching social media, watching online presence, watching how someone portrays themselves is important to me because to me, am a brand. And so I have to make sure that you match the brand that I'm with. Like, I don't want you to be out here bullying people, and I'm anti-bullying, that we don't align. We don't align. Mutual goals and expectations. You should definitely be going over short-term and long-term goals. You know, what is your goal with this dynamic you're trying to create for the short term and the long term? Are you looking for just something casual? You know, these are the type of conversations that need to be had. Also, compatibility of expectations. And these conversations are not just to be had during the vetting process because we grow as people. Um, I often use my partner as an example because we were in a dynamic at one point in time before he just became my partner. And when I started getting heavy into everything, um, I realized that I was just dragging his ass along with me. And I had never gotten consent. And I had to sit down and I had to be like, hey, so when we first started out on this journey that we're on, you know, I definitely wasn't doing all of the things. I wasn't as involved in all of the things that I'm involved in. Are you okay with this? Because this is a freaking lot. It's a lot for me. And so being someone that did not sign up for this, you know, I know it can be a lot. And I want to make sure that you're okay with this. I don't want it to overwhelm you. I don't want you to feel like I'm expecting you to do all of the things. Would I love for you to do all of the things for me? Yeah, with me? Yes. Yes, please. However, I don't want you to feel as if it's a must in order for our um, partnership to continue. And those are the type of conversations that need to be had. You know, what if he didn't want to be in the limelight? I've had submissives tell me, you know, oh, you know, I would love to, but I don't like being in the public eye like that. And I have to respect that. I'm not changing what I'm doing, but there would be an expectation for my submissive to, as I'm doing all of the things, I'm expecting them to do all of the things with me. They're in service. So if doing all of the things is not something that you're looking for, then we wouldn't be compatible. And I guess the last part of everything, if they've passed all of this, is sitting down in negotiations, negotiation, you know, you gotta sit down and you have to discuss all of the things. There's so much. I've seen a contract There's like 45 pages. There's so much to talk about. There's so much to consider. You could Google examples of contracts. When it comes to BDSM, there's a plethora out there. And as you get into the community and you get to know people, you'll be able to go to them and also ask them for those particular um, contracts as well, just so you could see, just so you can have an idea. Not even using their contract, but seeing different people contracts for different things, right? And boundaries, setting boundaries. Boundaries, consent. You have to know what your boundaries are. And you have to know that your boundary is there for you. And I don't care how much it seems that all of these things are aligning. If your boundaries can't be respected, none of those other things matter. Don't ever be in such a rush to get into a dynamic or get into I want a dominant, or I want a submissive. And now you're putting yourself in these horrible situations because you were in a rush. Don't ever be in that big of a rush. Because anything worth having is worth working for and is worth waiting for. Okay? I'm not here for additional tried enough that I'm working through on my own. Okay? And I believe that is it. Please feel free to ask questions in the comment section. What I don't know, I will find out, because I don't know all the things. I want to make sure that I put out there that this is my personal opinion on how things should be done. There's more than one way to skin a cat, but I'm big on healthy dynamics and safety and consent. So I just want to take a moment to thank you guys for talking with me. And I'll see you guys again next Thursday.